Before we get started in the program, I guess I need to recognize some folks that are here in the audience with us. Where's City Manager Randy Wright? He's here with us tonight. Randy, welcome. Assistant City Manager Brian DeLatte is with us. And then I think I have the Republican County Party Chairman, Mike, is with us, Carter. So welcome. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. I want to thank especially the San Patricio County Realtors Association for helping us put this on. Thank you, ladies, for helping us do that. Great having cookies and water here and stuff with us, so thank you very much. This is one of the things that the Portland Lions Club like to do is get all the information out to everyone here in the city that's going to be voting. So hopefully tonight you're going to have a chance to ask these men and women questions and listen to their platform as to what they want to do for the city as we move into the future. So with that, I'm going to ask Lion Richard Fiedler, who's standing there by the table, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag and to the Texas flag, and then we'll proceed. So if you'll please rise, and Lion Richard. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, if you'll go ahead and have a seat, please. Excuse me, you're going to have to stand up again. I messed up. Lion Heather Parks, where you at? She's going to give us prayer for this evening before we get started.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day and for the opportunity for us to be here. We appreciate the freedom that we have to be able to do this and to be able to be engaged in this community. And we thank you especially for each one of these candidates up here today, for their conviction to be here and to make this city a better place. We pray that you'll guide each and every one of them and guide each of us as voters as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay. I want to introduce our MC for this evening. Great friend of mine. I've known this gentleman for many, many years in the Catholic Church. If you've listened to Channel 6 every now and then, you may hear his voice on a commercial or two on Channel 6. You'll recognize it when he gets up here and starts talking. I guarantee you will. He's a great member with me at the Our Lady Mount Carmel Catholic Church. We do a lot of things at the church there together and stuff. So without any further say or whatever you want to call it, I want to introduce your MC for this evening, Brother Dan King.
Thank you very much, brother. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2022 City of Portland Elections Meet the Candidates Forum. And we're so thankful for the Portland Lions Club and the San Patricio County Association of Realtors. This evening's Candidates Forum is very, very important, and it's a great opportunity to learn more about the candidates. I called David Krebs this morning, Judge Krebs, sorry, had a quick question for him, and it was about 8 o'clock, and I left a message, and he called me back just a few minutes later and apologized. He said, I was officiating a wedding. And then it dawned on me, that's right, county judges officiate weddings, and it's one of the many, many hats that Brother David Krebs wears. And it also reminds me of all of the contributions he's made, not only to the city of Portland, but to San Patricio County. So I think it's appropriate right now that we honor Judge David Krebs. David, thank you. I want to share something with you to kind of set the tone for how serious this evening's forum is. I work for Channel 6 in sales, and about about a week ago, one of my clients called me and wanted to talk about something that happened to him. He has a business, but he's also a pastor at a church in Sinton. And before the church service started, they had a board meeting, and there was about 20 of them there attending. And it was about 10 o'clock Sunday morning, and two immigrants came in. They were Arab, they were a father and son, and they barged into the meeting and insisted on money and held up documentation that they're here with the government's auspices and demanded money. And so Nelson had to take him outside and calm him down and tell him that, it was very rude to just interrupt a meeting like that. And they demanded money. And so he said, well, let me go back and see what we can do for you. And so Nelson went back inside and they barged back in. And finally, the third time, he took him outside and said, you stay out here until I come back. Well, they followed him in again, demanding water. And when Nelson tried to get him some water, one of them went to the restroom. And so the group decided on giving him $50. So they gave him $50, but they were very indignant and unappreciative and threatening. And Nelson wondered whether he should have called the police or not, but he didn't, and hoped that that was the end of that. And he went back into the restroom, and they had raised the blinds and propped open the window. And so he says, this border situation is closer than we think. I mean, if it's in Sinton, it's just a matter of time for Portland. Are we as a city ready for something like that? And so that's why this evening's forum is so important. We need leaders who can plan for these things and be prepared for them and protect our citizens. So it's vitally important that you ask each of the candidates some very pointed questions about how they, would react to certain things and respond to certain things. So I want to make this as open as possible. So with that, please be thinking of a situation or that you might want to hear how they would respond. I was struck about a year ago, when was it, February of last year. One of the things that's so key and important here is infrastructure. And when we were taken off the grid, and the irony of it is I was in the backyard and I could see Chenier. I lost electricity for 3 days, and I'm seeing an LNG tanker out there loading up energy for another country. And it just struck me as ironic. And so anyway, it's really important to have the basics. And the city of Portland has done an excellent job, and I'm sure will continue. And I just say that so that we can be thinking and be mindful of infrastructure and all the things that this city needs to be successful. The election is Saturday, May 7th. It will include the race for mayor. It's a 2-year term. The candidates, as they appear on the ballot, are Ron Jorgensen and our incumbent Kathy Scuro. In the race for city council members, we have races for 2 seats. We have 5 candidates. Again, this is a 2-year term, and the candidates, as they appear on the ballot, are Elizabeth Ackman, Gary W. Moore, incumbent, John Reed, Zach Albrecht, also incumbent, and at the end, Frank Lacasio. Here are the rules for the procedures here this evening. Each candidate will come up here and make a personal introduction of not more than 4 minutes. This is probably a good time to recognize our timekeepers here with us this evening. Richard Fiedler is one of the timekeepers, and Jared Marks is the other. And thank you both for your time here this evening. After all of the candidates have made their initial introduction, you, the members of the audience, may direct one question at a time to one candidate. That candidate will answer the question and will have no longer than 2 minutes to answer that question. If any of the other candidates want to answer that same question, we'll pass the microphone, and you'll have also 2 minutes to answer that question. All the other candidates may make responses, and each member of the audience may ask no more than 2 questions to each candidate unless no other audience member wishes to ask a question. And since this is a forum and not a debate, candidates will not ask questions of each other. After the questioning from the candidate, the audience has concluded, each candidate will come up and make a 3-minute closing statement. Our official timekeeper will stand whenever a candidate has 30 seconds remaining, and we'll sound a bell. Can we sound a bell so we know what that sounds like? Okay. Whenever the candidate's time has expired. The speaking order of candidates of each office will be the same as the ballot position. And with that said, let's get started with our first candidate to introduce themselves, and that will be Ron Jorgensen. Ron, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Lions and Realtors, for putting on tonight's candidate forum. It certainly has gone the same over the years and years with different formats and different. Let's get this thing a little bit more room here. So my name is Ron Jorgensen, and I have lived in Portland for 37 years. I have 23 years on Portland City Council. Navy veteran, I was chamber president, and this week, I think it's coming out in the newspaper, will give you a much longer bio. The candidate forum is a very long tradition, and it has been in numerous places, and I've participated from both sides over the years. But standing here today gives me a little bit of deja vu, because I was here 4 years ago, and when the mayor and I ran for David's spot, there was actually little or no difference between the two of us, and the voting went in Kathy's favor that year, and she has been, I'll say, she's been a good mayor the first 2 years of the term. Did a lot of things with the port. I'm sure when she gets up here, she'll give you a longer list of her accomplishments. But I don't hold anything back. I'm not upset and mad at anybody that's on there. I just wanted to put another point of view across. Each council that has been in Portland ever since 1949 when we got incorporated has always built on the successes of the council before them. One comes to mind was Dick Mosier. In the late 90s, City of Portland was kind of stuck in one point, and we weren't getting any development. And so we argued on council, which comes first? We need to bring in more retail, and that'll bring in more people, or do we need to bring in more people, and that'll bring in more retail? And we went back and forth over it on council for months, and finally realized that the clear to the chicken and the egg is you have to have the egg first. And so we tried to figure out why we weren't building homes. So what Dick Mosier did at that time was he called in the developers and asked them, why are you not building in Portland? And what they told him was that because our lot size was too large, they couldn't build enough homes per acre to offset the costs of the streets, the utilities, and the homes to do that. So we said, what do you need? Well, we need a smaller lot size. If you can give us a 5,000-foot lot size, then we can build. So we did that, and that started the boom. That started the Westwood addition, that started the Cupertino area, and that begat more retail and more retail as time went on. Today, projects like the Kmart area and the area behind Bill Miller's, council has kind of made a slight turn in what they're doing in using the sales tax as a recruitment tool for the developers. Now, it may be common in other parts of the country, but I don't think we need to have that here yet. According to what I got from the city, 3,100 homes are on, there's 19 different subdivisions, 3,100 homes to be built over the upcoming years. If you have the residents, you will have the developers. We shouldn't have to be paying for that part to come in. If you give back the sales tax and even the abatement on the housing that they're putting in, eventually, and it's not going to happen immediately, 30 seconds, I'll have to finish up later. What's going to happen is you're going to have a shortfall, and that shortfall is going to have to be made up in in ad valorem tax. So if elected, I want to stop the sales tax rebates as an recruitment tool. I want to establish a homestead exemption. And lastly, I want to start talking to the public. Every time people come up to the podium, they get 4 minutes, and they get and told that they have to sit down.
Good timing, Ron. And now, Mayor Kathy Skuro. Kathy?
Good evening. As a citizen of Portland, you deserve and should demand accountability and favorable results from your city government. And as your mayor, I want you to question my actions, my voting record, and the job I have done for you over the past 4 years. Representing a wide range of diverse and differing opinions has been one of my greatest successes. I've worked hard to find the common ground or appropriate solutions to issues, and I'm proud of my voting record. According to the organization Area Vibes, Portland enjoys the highest livability index of any city on the coastal bend. It is, in part, due to the exceptional amenities, low crime per capita, and high levels of citizen satisfaction. We hear over and over again from our citizens that they feel safe and they value well-maintained infrastructure. But we also hear that they want more dining and retail options. I have and always will be committed to doing what is best for our citizens and our future. When our city council studies and debates an issue, we hear the points of views from each other. As mayor, I use the guiding principles of a servant leader to facilitate the best decision for our city, whether it's about economic development, public safety, or infrastructure maintenance. And through this process, together, we will continue to do what is best for the city of Portland. This is particularly true regarding the recent announcement of the development agreement on a 44-acre tract of land that has been zoned retail commercial for over 20 years and still remains undeveloped to this day. Your city council, city staff, along with third-party experts, studied today's economic climate and analyzed where the city's sales tax potential would be in 30 years under three separate options. Option 1, the property has no development after 30 years. Option 2, development without economic incentives. And option 3, development with an economic development agreement. It is clear that option 3 is the best option for the city of Portland. And keep in mind that this city is not giving up any sales tax dollars that the city has already earned, nor will a developer receive any rebated sales tax if the development agreement is not complied with. I invite you to pick up a handout on the back table that details the projected tax options for this property. Our residents will also be pleased to know that as part of this development agreement, the developer is required to share the cost of traffic flow improvements to Broadway Boulevard and California Drive. These improvements will be constructed by the City of Portland prior to any store opening and will drastically improve traffic flow even after accounting for the increased visits as a result of the development. Financially, the City of Portland has emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic in a state of financial strength, all while keeping ad valorem taxes to a minimum. Despite our rapid population growth and the inability to tap the industrial tax base just outside our city limits, the City of Portland ad valorem tax rate has remained relatively flat over the past 4 years at approximately 65 cents per $100. When comparing it to property tax rates around the coastal bend, our municipal tax rate is in the bottom half. When we consider amenities offered and the quality of life in Portland, it is truly an amazing accomplishment and a nod to how conservative the City of Portland is with your tax dollars. I'm not afraid of hard work, and if you continue to entrust me with great responsibility, I understand the commitment you're asking for me, and I ask for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Skuro. Now, we have 5 candidates who are running for the 2 city council seats. Our first candidate, Elizabeth Ackman.
I am happy to know that everyone up here is just as nervous as I am. Okay, well, thank you all so much for coming out. It's a true honor to be able to speak to you because voting is so important to me, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you who I am, what brought me to this place, and why I'm running. My name is Elizabeth Ackman. I am an Edward Jones financial advisor. My office is in the Old Town District. I came here from Dallas about 8 years ago as the operations manager of the Air Liquide plant in Ingleside. Once I set my roots in this town and I said, this is really where I want to stay and live, I changed careers because I saw an opportunity to help my community by their financial planning. I have a master's in industrial technology and safety, and I'm also a certified retirement planner. So what sets me apart from my running mates, aside from my background and my odd education, is my creativity and my passion for community. I think building our community together creates a vision of opportunities that the city can provide its citizens. When I got here, much like everyone, you need to meet friends, right? You got to get out and meet people. So I joined the citizens group where they were building this dog park. They wanted to create something that they had a vision for, and they worked in partnership with the city, and now we have the Kaya Dog Park. That set the tone for making me want to get more involved in this community. When my daughter got into high school and she joined the swim team, obviously I had to become a swim official because I was going to be at every single meet anyways. And I found a way to give back to the team by getting that technical training that I could help those kids be able to improve their game and then contribute to what we were doing. Go Wildcats. Last November 2020 is when I started volunteering at the voting polls. I highly respect the electoral process and voter integrity. I can't be there this May because I'm on the ballot, but I'm going to be back November because it is a true passion to help people get the information to make their vote heard. And we are always looking for volunteers. About 2 weeks ago, I was the chair of the 47th Annual WinFest, which means I put together an amazing team with the Portland Chamber of Commerce, and we pulled off the biggest festival we have annually in this town. After 2 years of not having something for our community to do, it was a no-brainer that I had to be involved to make sure that this festival was brought to you with the most care and passion I could put into it. My goal for getting on to City Council is to guide growth and progress while improving this community together. I see the city supporting small businesses just as much as they're supporting the large industry around us, by including them in things like campaigns or hosting community events that showcase these local entrepreneurs. I feel that we need to be careful that in the rush to grow new businesses and housing developments, that we don't squeeze out our existing small businesses because they are the backbone of the American economy and of this town. Public service is a privilege, and the City Council needs to remember that they are representing citizens' interest at City Hall. There should be a motivation to educate the public to understand why these decisions are being made. I plan to improve the bridge between the community and the growth as an advocate for the citizens. We have lost basic civic education, and so I want to establish a youth advisory commission with the GPISD. It's kind of lofty, but I think we can do it. This is where the kids, they learn to affect change in their community, and they're interacting with peers and adults on important issues. Since I'm getting out of here, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm Elizabeth Ackman. I'm going to tell you so much more in my closing because I got a little bit more to go. I am seeking your vote May 7th for City Council or earlier if you're an early voter.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And our next candidate is incumbent Gary W. Moore. Gary?
Well, thank you. And first, I'd like to thank the Portland Lions Club and the San Francisco County Association of Realtors for hosting this event. This is very important to get our information out and probably one of the best formats to do so. So a little bit about me. Originally, I'm from Houston, Texas, and I relocated here when I served in the U.S. Navy in 1998. And I served from 1997 through 2001 and moved to Portland in 2002. I'm married to my wife Sandra, she's here, and we have 4 children, and they're all in GPISD currently. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in finance from American Continental University, and I'm the owner of Revolutionary Insurance Group and acting CEO there as well. So I ran in 2018, and the platform I had really hasn't changed. So at that point in time, the platform was to increase retail. People wanted more restaurants, and my thought process was to increase the amount of rooftops. And I'm sure the realtors here probably would appreciate that and understand that. So that's exactly what has happened since we've been on there. Also, by increasing the amount of rooftops and the number of homes, what I mean by that is that increases the property tax basis, which I knew would be needed for infrastructure growth that was coming from an inevitable increase in population due to our industrial neighbors, because we're not able to grab that tax revenue from our industrial neighbors. So we were able to do that. We were able to, and also keeping the property tax rate low. That's something that's very important to me, but we can't do it in a way that we're not able to maintain the needs of the city, like public safety and infrastructure. So I'm proud to say that we have done that, and I'm going to say we a lot because it's a team. It's not just an individual effort. It's not an I when you're working with the council. You know, with the leadership of Mayor Scuro and the other council members, we were able to make things happen, individually adding to that. But what we were able to do, we were able to continue to maintain the infrastructure and roadways and waterways, wastewater, et cetera. We addressed the need for a new animal control facility, which was completed not too long ago, which is awesome. I was able to be part of the process that was able to approve the redevelopment of the old Kmart property, which I'm sure we all can enjoy the Chick-fil-A that's there now, and there's several other great businesses that are coming, like Freddy's frozen custard is coming, so that's kind of neat. And then I'm sure, you know, it's going to come up already that the redevelopment of the retail center for next to Bill Miller's Barbecue. We went back and forth for months on this, trying to get it right, and I feel like we definitely did. That development, we were able to get that done in a way that it pays for itself, and it is not going to be a burden to the taxpayers of Portland. We were able to secure the additional ETJ from Corpus Christi, and that took a long time, allowing us to have a direction to grow. And it also creates a buffer zone for industrial encroachment upon our city. We're able to, you know, as you can see, the Indian Point and the revitalization there. You know, the building's been torn down. We have a beautiful thing that's being built there that we're all going to be able to enjoy there. And in addition to that, you know, we were able to create the state legislature, so that is going to create a zoning district for Old Town. So I encourage you to look at Proposition A, and Randy Wright will be talking about that a little bit later on that. So as a recap, I continue with our growth in this city, but managing in a way that keeps that small town feeling, keeping taxes low and without sacrificing public safety and infrastructure. I'd appreciate your vote on May 7th.
Thank you, Gary. And our next candidate is John Reed.
Good evening. I am John Reed. I'm hoping I can earn your vote tonight with some of the answers I can give, and I'm looking forward to some of the questions. A little bit about me. I've got an associate's degree in criminal justice. I'm a 21-year law enforcement veteran. I've worked San Patricio County, Ingleside PD, and I'm currently an officer over there with the Port of Corpus Christi. Don't hold it against me. I've lived here in Portland for 8 years, and I've been in the Coastal Bend pretty much all my life. I've been on the when we lived in Ingleside, I was on the Ingleside Planning and Zoning Commission, and also with the insurance committee there, internal within the city. My wife and middle child, my daughter, sitting in the back there. I've got a 1-year-old son back home with his Mimi, and a 23-year-old son in college at UTSA right now. I'm very invested in this city, and that's the main thing I hope that you get from me tonight, is that I am invested in our town and in the citizens of this town. unlike some of the other people that may run for council, I don't have anything to gain by being a city council member. I'm not a business owner locally. I don't, I won't get any clients, at least I hope not. There's the only driving force for me to run for city council is because I want to leave something for my family that they can be proud of, and something that they can work with. I want to see us have a clean community, a safe community, which is what everybody here wants. I think city council should be here as a representative of you. They should not be making unilateral decisions. There shouldn't be decisions being made in the shadows or anything like that. Not saying that they're doing that now, but that's something I believe so strongly. I want to make sure that that's up front and out in the open. That we need to be out seeking comment from the public, not just available for comment, but actually seeking that comment, seeking that input, and finding out what's going on in the community, what's important to everybody. Because me, and my point of view, is only one little portion of our community. There's so many other demographic and socioeconomic aspects to look at that we need to be actually seeking that out. Man, I know this 4 minutes is going to go really quick. So, getting ready for this, my mom over here, she's in the audience down here. I actually brought my parents to Portland. We're from the Rockport area. One of the things that she said, read Proverbs. So a few of you churchgoers here will recognize some of that. But she also said something about 20 years ago that stuck with me. She said, when I got into law enforcement, she said, be sure you're enforcing the spirit of the law in addition to the letter of the law. And that holds true. That holds true for council. That holds true for law enforcement. The things that council does, they need to do it by the letter of the law. But I think if they are looking at the spirit of what they're doing, not just doing it in a specific way, but by doing it in the right way, that we can really reach out and really build on what is already out there and just really improve what we have here in Portland. I think Portland's a great town, and I just hope that I can continue to improve on that and I can earn your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. And our fourth candidate is incumbent Zach Albright.
Good evening. My name is Zach Albrecht, and I'm running for re-election to the Portland City Council. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming and thank the Portland Lions Club and San Patricio County Association of Realtors for putting together this event. A little bit about myself. In 2013, I graduated from Texas A&M with a degree in mechanical engineering and commissioned into the U.S. Army at that time. I served 8 years with the National Guard. First as a second lieutenant with my own platoon in a chemical company attached to Homeland Response Force. Then as a captain at the brigade level, where I was a planning and operations officer and had the opportunity to respond to the civil disturbances of 2020, various hurricanes, and I was on the state COVID-19 task force. These gave me a good leadership background and understanding of team building, as well as an understanding of how the State Department of Emergency Management works, which I think is unique and beneficial to anybody in an official position in a coastal community where we do have hurricanes. In the private sector, I started off as a reliability engineer focused on long-term problems and solutions before managing a small team responsible for scheduling and executing the maintenance for 3 chemical units, and eventually moving to turnaround management, where I managed the 2020 Celanese turnaround, which was a $30 million event, about 130,000 man-hours that was delivered on time, under budget, and with no injuries. So I understand some of what our industrial neighbors go through. I understand how that can be managed responsibly for the community we live in. I can bring that insight to council, as well as the financial experience that I gained from that event, managing things from small projects to large projects. I was appointed to council in this past December when Mr. Tom Yardley stepped down to run for county commissioner. I applied for and was appointed to it. And since then, just in these few short months, I think my voting record speaks for itself. As Gary alluded to, we've had the opportunity to vote to improve various parks around the city, the Indian Point Pier, improvements to be done at the boat ramp along with bike trails, as well as to authorize retail establishments that we've already started talking about going in near the Bill Millers, and for the ordinances that will govern the leisure and entertainment district when that passes in May. I believe these items reflect what I'm passionate about and what I hope to bring to Portland. We have a wonderful, safe community with nice parks, exceptional growth over the last decade. I think we can look around at some of the projects going into the coastal bend and feel pretty confident that growth will continue for at least another decade. And it's our responsibility as members of council to make sure that that growth is managed, that that growth is leveraged to benefit all of our citizens, bringing things we want, and with the tax abatements to make sure that those are used responsibly and efficiently. I think they have been, and I think they will be. I got a few more seconds, but as Elizabeth said, please make sure you get out and vote. Get the folks you know to get out and vote. Early voting is honestly probably better than the day of because it gives you that lever in case you have something come up on election day. So please get out there and vote, both for the candidates here and the other propositions on the ballot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zach. And our fifth candidate is Frank Locasio.
Hello, my name is Frank Locasio. I also want to thank the Lions Club and the Association of Realtors for giving us the opportunity to talk to everybody today. I was born in Louisiana, but I've lived in Portland almost 35 years. I'm running for a seat on the city council. I had the privilege to serve for 6 years during the 1990s, and I want to do that again. I'm retired now. I have a degree in engineering. I worked for OxyChem for 30 years as a manager of engineering and maintenance. And after my retirement from OxyChem, I worked on several other large projects in the Coastal Bend. My background and experience gives me the tools to do the fiduciary part of a city councilman. You might ask, well, if you're retired, why do you want to do that again? Well, I'm not in alignment with some of the decisions that were made by the city council. I think I can give a different perspective from where I sit. I'm older, I have more experience, I have more gray hair and not much of it. Like many Portland residents, I live on a fixed income, and I live in a different part of Portland. You know, the council seats are all at large, but Portland's growing and growing fast, and each area needs some representation. I live out on Moore, where the city's growing. It's growing out that way, and so I live in the traffic. I live in the construction. I live in where the city's growing, and I see the issues that have to do with the growth of a city like Portland. My goal is to provide sound leadership to making the best decision that serves the community. I support the revitalization of Old Town and Sunset Lake. I'm not sure why we need a special district. We should be able to do it as we see it. I think if the city improves the infrastructure in that area, improves the streets, improves the sidewalks, the drainage, and that makes that a better area for people that will attract more businesses and better people. I'm a firm believer in build it, and they will come. So my vision is to make that part of Portland a place where there's sidewalks and people go and enjoy the quality of life. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Frank. And that concludes the remarks of all the candidates. And at this time, we invite you, the audience, to come forward. The microphone is right there to ask any of the candidates a question. Again, they'll have 2 minutes to answer that question. And then if any other candidate wants to answer that same question, feel free to do that. So, David, if you'll help me with the microphone. Who from the audience would like to ask any of the candidates a question? Go ahead.
Question is for Mayor Scurro. This is kind of taking us back.
Yeah, if you could pull the mic down, please. And
Probably not a question you're expecting, but taking us back to COVID and the lockdowns, I'm just curious, as you being the emergency management director for us, I'm curious if you have any regrets over the lockdowns or anything you might do differently if we were to get to that place again. How would you handle it? And if you are satisfied with how you handled it previously?
Thank you for the question. I think COVID-19 was one of the hardest things that we all have gone through, particularly the city of Portland. I would wake up every morning to see what Governor Abbott had put out, and we were unfortunately not able to do anything as a city. We had to follow what Governor Abbott directed us to do. So all of the shutdowns that happened were done at the state level, and we had no ability to make any changes to that. What I did do, and what I struggled with every day, was people that were the small businesses. So I worked very hard to help find sources of income for our small businesses to keep them afloat. And we worked with the PPP, Small Business Administration, so that people had resources that could help them through these closures. I can tell you that we did file for an emergency declaration so that we could file for federal funding. And so we worked through this, and as a result of that, we came out okay. And I know that people have suffered from COVID, and we still potentially could suffer some setbacks from COVID. And so we are continually watching that, and we will continually work with the federal and state government to help us through those issues.
thank you, Mayor Scuro. Would anyone else like to comment on Ron?
I think the city did an adequate job on COVID. It was something that has never been hit us before, and following the government guidelines on it. I lost a neighbor in COVID, and it was tough on everybody, and appreciate what the city did. I think there was some things that might have been able to have been done a little bit. I think the library was closed down a little bit longer than maybe it should have, or they should have found some ways to get around that. But that's personal preference, and my wife saying I can't get it to the library. So other than that, I think they did a very good job.
Anyone else?
It was a very difficult time, and as Mayor Scuro, pointed out, our hands were tied on what we could do, and that was frustrating for me because I was very anti-lockdown, not really big on the masking and everything. I'm not an anti-masker, but for me, I was looking at raw data, and that's what I do for a living, and so I had a hard time with that. I really do wish there was more we could have done. Opening the library, opening different places was difficult for us because we had staff issues as well. We had staffing issues like everyone else, that some of the staff didn't feel comfortable coming back to work, and that's something that we have to recognize and respect as well. So, looking at it, I don't think there's anything that we really could have done differently, although there was a lot of stuff I would have liked to see the state have done differently, which would have affected us.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Anybody else would like to talk about how COVID was handled?
My answer is going to be a little off. I think that the city did a terrific job where we weren't locked down, and we knew that it was state and federal rules of how we could operate and move about, and you know, the stores did the best they can trying to respond with on-the-fly decisions. I would say the improvement that needed to be made, and this isn't necessarily a city thing, but when we got COVID, we got the monoclonal antibodies. And the only reason we ended up getting them is because we did the research of what Governor Abbott pushed out in a newspaper. I went to my doctor. He had no idea how to get it done. And we went to another clinic, and they barely knew how to do it. So we had to contact the site in Robstown to be able to start with the information, and then we pushed that back to my doctor. And he says as much research as he could get, he just wasn't getting that trickle down from the state health department. So and then this may be out of turn, but you know, something to remember, God forbid this ever happen again, but being able to disseminate ways to truly help your citizens in such a simple manner as to pass on that information that you're just getting through would be the only improvement that could, I think, even be done at that point. Sorry, thank you.
John?
Yeah, if I could just add, I think the reversal took too long with the COVID response. Once we found out the information that was being said, we were told all along in the beginning, we just don't know what we don't know. Well, once we did know, that didn't seem to change anything. We stayed on that same path for a long time and just plowed right through. I think we could have probably reversed a lot of the stuff a lot faster. And I realize that's a lot of that came from the government's level up higher than the city. And it's not necessarily something the city could control. But on the other hand, there were cities and states that were challenging a lot of what was going on. Maybe we could have done that. Hindsight's 20/20. That's shown true time and time again. But that's, I think that's my opinion on the matter.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, sir, I think you had a question, right? No? Oh, go ahead, please.
Okay, first off, I think we are between a rock and a hard place, and I think the city did fine on the COVID thing. I'm the kind of person, I would have went further. I would have probably disagreed with everybody up here and went further, so I think the city did great. Because I'm a law and order type person, and so I like to follow the law if possible, but, and not challenge it. But here's my question for the city. If we have a special district or whatever, we're giving back rebates. When we give a rebate, I'm asking for Ron, excuse me. If we give a rebate, in effect, the existing business in town, they don't get a rebate, so they're kind of subsidizing their new competition. That, and I could be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. The old business is now subsidizing the new business, and that's kind of not fair. Like, small business people may not want to subsidize bigger companies coming in. And as part of that question, I heard twice, 2 or 3 times where they said, well, we're something, we're not something new taxes or something. I couldn't really understand what they were saying about we are not giving money away or something. I missed it twice, and I'm sorry about that. And I guess that's it. I'm sorry I rambled a bit, but I'm concerned that the old businesses in town are going to indirectly, because of the rebates, be subsidizing the new businesses. And I don't think we actually need that place near Bay Ridge. We don't need to pay a company to come in there. If it's really needed, the business will come just because we have the good people of Portland that wants it. That's not exactly, I'm sorry, I wasn't as elegant as I would have liked to have been, but that's the question.
You were addressing that to me?
It's-
So, yes, that's something I was bringing up to, just didn't have enough time to get to it. For instance, and I don't think the city has acknowledged yet that a Target is coming in, but everybody seems to think it's a Target, so we'll just call it a Target for now. I've been trying to get a hold of Walmart to find out when a Target store comes in next to them, how much business they lose, how much goes to the Target. When you do that, clearly, the way that 380 is set up, when it meets the criteria for it, the sales tax money from the Target then goes back through the comptroller, goes to the city, and then it's going to be given back to the developer. But the money that Walmart loses has lost. You now have a deficit in the general fund because you don't have that sales tax coming in from the Walmart because the people are now shopping over there. So be it the Target or be it any one of the other shops that come in over there, be it similar to some of the shops that are already in town, and I talked to the little lady that had the boutique that comes to our morning coffees. If a little shop comes in over there, she winds up losing business. The sales tax from her place dwindles a little bit, may not put her out of business, but it dwindles, and the one that comes in over there, now they're getting the money back to the developer. And that, to me, again, is the unfair part, plus the competition that you're bringing in, but mainly the sales tax. Eventually, it causes a deficit. Eventually, it'll wind up causing your ad valorem tax to go up, your tax rate on your houses, and that's the part that I'm really here for today is that I don't, this is being put off. It's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen the year after that. It may happen 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But this council is laying that ground for that period of time, and how many of them are going to still be on council at that time? When they see this starting to come and they have to be held accountable for the tax rate going up, then they're off and it's left for the next purple. Every council depends on the previous council.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Anyone else care to answer that question? Gary? Okay.
So thank you for bringing it up. So this is kind of an interesting deal. So Walmart and Target, and if this even is, because we're under an NDA of what it would be. So if, let's just call it the 125 square foot, 1,000 square foot big box retailer. I think that one fits a little bit better. But if you take those two types of stores, a new store is not going to open up next to an existing store and automatically have a drain. So there's two different types of customers that are there, and they research this, fully. And you see this all over if you go to different places. That's why you see a row of fast food restaurants. So they have similar targets, but they're all drawing in more people. They want to be right there because it draws in more people. So, and you also have to factor in the additional population growth that we have here. This particular project, it is a sales tax rebate, all right, but it doesn't affect other stores. It really doesn't, because it's bringing in more shoppers to the area. So that's something that it has not been addressed here. And I think that's something that everybody really needs to understand, that this is money that is coming from the development, from the sales tax, from the development, which doesn't necessarily mean it's Portland people that are paying the bulk of this. It's going to be anyone who is buying something at this retailer. So I hope that kind of clarifies a little bit of it. And I had the same mindset of thinking that, just the sheer volume, the growth of Portland would bring in this particular retailer. And I did independent studies of my own. I reached out to other people. I reached out to people I knew that knew CFOs and COOs of big box retailers. And I was able to verify that this is what was needed to be able to make this happen.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Look like Zach wants to respond.
Yes, thank you for the question. I'd like to kind of follow along with what Gary was saying and just make it clear that the sales tax is still collected at these establishments. It is not being subsidized by the rest of the town. And also, the addition of a new store is not necessarily at a current business's loss, especially when you're talking about large-scale retail. I do believe that this retailer will draw people in from the surrounding communities, so you're probably talking about an increase in net sales. And then it's also important to look at what that currently is. Mayor Scaro mentioned it in her opening remarks. For 20 years, it has been zoned commercial. For 20 years, it has been vacant. So even if the city is giving back some of the sales tax generated there, everything that it makes will be additive to the city's general fund. It currently does not generate sales tax because it's a field. Once there's retail there, once these other restaurants there, all of that money, like Ron said, will come in sales tax and then be issued, a portion will be issued as a rebate. The city keeps the remainder, and there will also be a market increase in the property tax value of that real estate. It's going to go from what it is now to, if everything goes according to plan, a very nice big box retail shopping center with several small developments inside of there.
Thank you, Councilman. Frank?
I guess I don't really understand. I don't think that another Target or another Kmart will bring in that much additional people to Portland to shop. Now, if we were going to get a Costco or something that would draw people from the other side of Corpus, then I would agree. But I don't necessarily agree with the logic that's being put out now.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? John?
Yeah, just real quick. I heard it before. I think Portland should be able to stand on its own merit. If a business is going to be able to come in and make money in our town, and it's going to be profitable for them to do so, unless we're fighting other towns to get their business or to get that business in, I don't think we need to be issuing any rebates. But they have a little bit of inside baseball that I don't have, since, like they said, they have NDAs. They know what business it is. I don't. So maybe that is something we're facing. But that's the way I feel about it.
Okay, thank you, John. Anyone else? Mayor?
So it's very hard to juggle sometimes property owner rights versus what the city may need or desire. What I can tell you, and what I've learned, that big businesses do like to have incentives. And back before 2007, the Lowe's that is now currently in Aransas Pass did approach the city of Portland. I was not on council, nor do I believe my incumbents, the incumbents were, but an incentive package was requested and denied by the city of Portland. So what did Lowe's do? They went to Aransas Pass. Since 2007, and that store has been built, that store has generated more than $2 billion of sales tax revenue for the state of Texas and the city of Aransas Pass. There's no doubt in my mind that when a business wants to be in the area, they're going to look for those incentives. They demand those incentives. That's what our economic advisors have told us. So are we going to be a community that once again loses this type of business to an area city? I think that we can do the also example with Walmart. Walmart came before and asked for some incentives, and they went to Aransas Pass. They also came back, and the property owner incentivized the Walmart by putting deed restrictions on the property that's adjacent to Walmart. So that big property that's vacant right now next to Academy, that's so deed restricted, I don't know what other type of businesses will be able to come there that compete with Walmart. So that's a little bit behind the stories and what we look at in economic development. And I hope you know that we work really hard to make sure that we are doing the best thing for our city.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Anyone else? Okay, any other questions? Yes, Tom? Well, and then you.
My name's Tom Yardley, and I'm going to ask this question because it's related to the one we're discussing right now. As far as I know, I'm not governed 2 minutes or 4 minutes, right? It's going to take me a minute to get my question out. All right, so this question is for the mayoral candidates, specifically for Mr. Jorgensen. And it kind of adds on to what we're just discussing. But, you know, I look at your brochure, it says, stop using sales tax rebates for recruitment tools for developers. So I am under the impression that the development north of Bill Miller, as it stands, you're not supportive of that. As you know, I was on the city council when we voted for this, and I can tell you that the council, we spent many months going back and forth with the developer, pushing back on him to come up with a plan that would work for the city. The city staff spent numerous hours researching this, working out the details. We reached out to, in fact, when we were at TML, we went to some very specific events at TML that had to do with development. We talked to other representatives for other cities. As far as we can determine, there is no big box retail occurring in Texas today that is not incentivized in some manner. So if you think that's going to come on its own, it's not, because they're going to go to another city who will incentivize it. Now, that incentivization can be all kinds of things. Some of the cities would lay out all of the infrastructure for the development in advance, which costs them millions of dollars to do. We didn't want to do that. We're not going to burden our citizens with putting that burden on the back of our taxpayers. A sales tax rebate is just that. The sales tax that's collected, a portion of that is given back to the developer under the agreement that we hammered out with them. It doesn't cost anybody in this city a dime. It doesn't hurt any of the other businesses. It doesn't impact your property tax. None of that happens. I can assure you that we as a council would not have moved forward with this if it was not the best deal for the city and our residents. We spent a lot of time on this project, and we arrived at what works well for the city, our residents, and, by the way, for the developer. It's a win-win-win situation. And if you go back and look at it, that council voted unanimously for this. It wasn't like there was people on that council going, hold on a minute, this isn't what's right. This was 100% of the council supported this deal. So I guess my question is, what did we miss? What did we overlook? What is it that we and all the other experts couldn't see that somehow we did the wrong deal? Because I can tell you, I stand by my vote. I'm quite satisfied with what we did, and I'll be happy when that big box comes. And I'll tell you what, when the residents of Portland see it, I think they'll be happy too. Thank
So
you.
your question is,
What did we miss?
what did you miss? To start off with, none of that information was brought out to the public. You had one meeting in November that you talked to the developer, and on January 4th, while we were still in the shadow of the holidays, is when it came in and when it passed. There was no public meetings other than the one in November that you actually went out and tried to explain and get consensus from the public. You have a lot of people that are over on Cupertino and La Mirada that are not happy with traffic patterns. They don't like the apartment houses behind it. You gave abatements to the apartment houses, which we've never done before. And there are other ways of doing it. There was a capital improvement plan that we did with A1 Steakhouse. We also gave abatements to Carriage Inn when it first came in because we were needing senior housing, and then later it turned into Brookdale. There are some other ways. I don't know if you explored all of those because you guys never made that public. You never told us what the work was done behind the scenes and sold anybody on it. You just popped it on us at the last minute. And my concern is if you've done this already once and there's more vacant, it seems like if there's a piece of vacant land over there, you guys want to fill it with something. So there's a whole bunch of land there on Buddy Gannam. I got some information that looks like some other stuff you guys are working on over there. I don't know what you're going to give away at the next one. And if you keep giving away stuff on sales tax, eventually it is going to come back and hit the general fund, which means that the taxes are going to go up for the people that are here.
Okay, anyone else care to comment on? Okay, John?
Yeah, I just want to clarify where I stand on this, just in case there was any question. If it's a competitive business that we're needing to give abatements to get them here, by all means, I think we should be competitive. Like I said, I don't know what this business is that is coming in. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. But, you know, if it's something competitive, by all means, let's be competitive. If it's something like Walmart or Target, I don't think we have to be competitive to get a Walmart. There's a Walmart every town you go through. But, you know, that's, like I said, I'm in favor of doing that if that's something that we need to do to get that business here.
Zach?
I'd just like to speak to some of the, there's different things we could have tried. A big portion of this happened before I was on council. Everything I know and understand about it, I am 100% behind it. And I just want to reiterate something that Gary touched on when this question came up earlier. The sales tax abatement does not cost the city anything. You can put things into your capital improvement plan. You can build out infrastructure. You're welcome to do that. All of that does cost the city money. With the sales tax rebate, the only thing you're giving up is some of the money that you're making. That's what a rebate is. And also, I know I've been on council the least out of everybody here, but in the few TML conferences I've been able to go to, and even on the trip to DC that I went on with the Chamber of Corpus, it is very clear that if you're chasing big box retailers or Class A establishments, since the advent of Amazon, of online ordering, they need to be incentivized. The economics of the game have shifted, and the economics of the game have definitely shifted with all the supply chain issues and the price of materials. I mean, they should want to come to Portland on their own, but that's just not the way it is anymore. They want to be incentivized, and our neighbors will incentivize them.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Gary?
Zach's 100% correct. It does require the incentive to bring something like this in town because of the climate, the way things have shifted in the retail environment. We worked for months tirelessly trying to come up with something that would work. Like I said, incentives is not something that I'm really very fond of unless it makes good economic sense. So you've seen the vacant land. Now think of it built out, and it's going to have potentially a value that's a taxable value of $90 million. Right? Now what that equates to in tax, I forget. I think it's somewhere. I mean, it's astronomical. When we laid the things out, I think the mayor has it specifically. It just was a no-brainer to look at it that way. But there were some other things that we would not give and we would not budge on because it wasn't a good deal for the citizens of Portland. And I'm proud of my vote on that. I'm proud of the research that I did independently. And I'm proud of all the council for all the questions and not just rolling over to what was initially brought to us because that would have been an issue. But I don't want to see a incentive given to everyone that wants to come to town. That is not something that I think is the right approach. It should only be given when it makes good sense. And if it's not going to be a burden to the taxpayers. And even long term, we looked at that. We looked at what it would be for public safety increases and everything. And we looked at all that and still came up with this decision because it was the right one to make for the citizens of Portland.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Okay, we have another question coming up. And tell us who you want it directed to, please.
Oh, basically everybody here.
Okay. Who do we want to start with?
Well, City Council in general. First statement is I support the Old Portland program. But I live on Driftwood, down over there, the Old Portland area. Drainage is bad when it rains. Sewer backups are bad. What are you going to do for those? You got to spend money in the oil area. I mean, when it rains, it floods, those streets flood, and everybody knows. Secondly, is the traffic. I think we have an ordinance on sounds. Some of these young kids right here running around in cars, I mean, they speed down my street. maybe more police or what. I almost got run over one day walking in the morning. Those two are the main things. But when we're talking about incentives, I agree with you guys. You got to spend money to make money, first and foremost. But I appreciate the city council pushing back on the recent hospital district because that's a taxpayer burden. Everybody here's taxes would have increased tremendously, and that was snuck up on us. So we have to be realistic on what we're going to support and what we're not going to support. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, so we'll start with the top of the ballot here. Ron, infrastructure, boom boxes, and, right?
Well, certainly, that's a police matter, and obviously, if I'm elected, we'll get the police after that part of it. Actually, I was more concerned, I was hoping that there was somebody else here. One of the past assistant principals of GPISD High School has attended 5 funerals for drugs overdose. And I was hoping she was going to be here today to bring that question up, that we need to start doing a little bit more on drugs in town. It's here. I was told it was here a long time ago. I was told that it wasn't that bad when you compare it to other cities, but I think it's time we do a little bit more on that. And what was the other part of his question?
Infrastructure in the old town, the sewage is backing up and no drainage.
Again, that's more of a public works thing. You call in, make the call to public works. If you don't get the result back, then come up to city council and talk to us. Be glad to return that phone call to you if I'm in there as mayor. Matter of fact, I think that's in my closing statements, because 4 minutes just isn't enough time sometimes when you come up there to city council, but I'll have your phone number and call the next day.
Thank you, Ron. Mayor?
If there's anyone that's violating street law or making noise, please call the 911 and make a report. In regards to infrastructure, the city does a very good job in infrastructure and watching drainage, and we do have capital improvement plans to continue with that infrastructure. We just did a bond for $9 million in which to continue with our street repairs. So if you are specifically having issues, we need to know about that. The only way we know is if, it's particularly with sanitary sewer, is if you call and report. We can see the flooding, but we can't necessarily see what goes on in your home or with sanitary sewer. So please, you need to make those reports to us so that we can get that on our radar.
Thank you, Mayor. Elizabeth?
So what was your name? Fred? Fred. So I agree with about 98% of everything you said. You were spot on. Going back to the abatements and things, when you build out these capital projects, you're going to have to give a little, and you're correct. But my thought is, you know, when these developers, they build these centers and these communities, it's up to those developers to include the sidewalks and the streets. But city has some say on the streets that we want coming in and out. And the shortfall on the Bay Ridge development is the city, that development, they're kind of tacking on the growth of that. And where is the main vein to get in and out of that neighborhood? And so the council said, okay, with the new developer, we're going to expect you to put in some roads to control that traffic. So I'm hoping the lesson from this is going forward, a lot more forethought into the traffic flow patterns in addition to the infrastructure, so that we don't have this kind of a bottleneck going forward. And then the fight is, well, there's not enough streets to get in and out of this neighborhood. We're going to make concessions. It's just going to have to happen with these large things. It's not going to be with every little thing. However, there should be some of that foresight planning just to make sure that this community stays available and accessible.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Councilman?
So regarding the noise with the cars, I support more police officers. Always have and always will. I think that it's difficult to not to be able to budget for enough police officers, but I know we've been doing a good job of filling the positions, but I would love to see more officers on the street. On the our capital improvement plan does address ongoing infrastructure concerns that are brought to us, but if there is an individual concern that needs to be brought to Public Works, because sometimes there's a break or a breach or something like that that needs to be addressed, And it's similar to our road improvement plan. You know, we're always, you know, going through. That's why you see kind of a constant rotation throughout the city to make sure that our streets don't end up like some of our neighboring cities. We won't say any names. But that's, am I missing something? Was there anything else that you had on there?
I believe that was it.
I think that was it. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. John?
As far as law enforcement, I think you know where I stand on that. Yeah, I will say, you get what you pay for. If you're gonna fund your department well, you're gonna keep good officers, then you'll probably get those problems addressed. I'm sure the chief would be happy to sit down with you, talk to you about those concerns. I've met him in the past. I know he's a good guy, and I'm sure he'd be happy to hear what you have to say, and would probably take action on that. As far as the streets, just like Councilman said, I know that there is currently a project underway, phased project, where they are doing some street repairs, renovations, resurfacing. I believe there may be some instances where they're also dealing with some of the drainage on that also. Hopefully that'll continue and get a lot more done the more we move forward.
Thank you, John. Councilman?
I guess we're just passing it down the line. Thank you for the question. I'd like to just second what's already been said about the infrastructure. The Public Works, they have a plan, a phased plan laid out, and they are addressing it. Again, if you have specific issues, please call and let the city know, because it's difficult to fix what we don't know about. On the policing front, I will say that I've been incredibly impressed with the responsiveness of our police force. The other day, I have a 6-month-old daughter, and we were taking her for a walk down Broadway Boulevard over there, and it was around New Year's, and somebody fired off a few fireworks, and inside of about 3 minutes, there were 6. I don't think there were 6, but there were 3 or 4 police cars there, and they saw us walking. They said, "Did you hear gunshots?" And we said, "No, but we did see some fireworks. They were over here, and the issue was put to bed." The chief is very open to folks going for ride-alongs. I highly encourage it. I got a chance to do one a couple months ago, and our police officers are incredibly active while they are on shift. You see them out there on 181, but you also see them responding all over town. So with any of these concerns, or if even something looks out of place, feel free. That's what they're there for. Give them a call. They were incredibly professional, and I think Chief Corey is doing an excellent job, and I do know that from talking with them that there's really good morale with that unit. There was a comment around pay. It is competitive, and the police department is currently well-staffed.
Thank you, Councilman. Frank?
Well, as I said in my speech, I really support the revitalization of Old Town. I think Old Town would be a great place to live. It's got the ambiance of being a nice place. My daughter lives in a part of Houston that's very old, but it's got good streets, and they walk. And I'd like to see Old Town with a group of mom and pop type businesses. We got enough chains in Portland. Let's get the local businesses and let them thrive in Portland. Now, I support the police, but I said I live on Moore, and I live at the point where it's 45 to 35, and I live right near where the speed limit changes. And believe me, people go down Moore. It's a great street. It's good to do 55 miles an hour down Portland. And I'm sorry to say, but in the 20 years that I've lived on Moore Avenue, I've never seen a commercial vehicle stopped. I'm not against the businessman, but if we can at least stop the 18-wheelers and tell them to slow down, I sure would appreciate it, because I live in a section where they really go sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the interest of time, we have another question.
My question is for the mayor. As our esteemed judge will tell you, our county is in a state of growth, and Portland, the city itself, has been in a state of growth over the past few years, and we're expecting even further growth. So I'm wondering what your plans are, and this can go to anybody as well, what your plans are for Portland to be able to meet this growth, so that way, as more people come into the county and the area, they're not incentivized to go to other towns or even worse, into the next county over.
So you're asking
But, like,
about,
if plans for like infrastructure, housing to be able to meet the growth that's going to be coming into the area.
so the city is currently working on what we call Plan 2040. And that gives us a projection on how we're to grow. You know, when the industrial development happened, where the ExxonMobil is, that really cut off our growth corridor. And so we had to come up with Plan B, if you will. And we worked with the city of Corpus Christi to have them secede some of their ETJ so that we can now grow further to the west. They seceded over 15 square miles, which is the size of the way the city of Portland is now. So we have plenty of growth corridor. So our Plan 2040 is a plan that will show how we will grow. We are wrapping that plan up shortly, and we have done this type of planning in the city of Portland for decades. And I think that that is what served us well in our growth patterns, and we will continue to do that. In regards to attracting people to come and live here and be part of our community, we do publicly advertise how great a city we live in. That is done from publications to outreach to job fairs, and we do encourage people to come and live here. We have staff that work with us, that work on doing this every day, and we do enjoy a great place to live, and we want to make sure that people are coming here to live.
Thank you, Mayor. And you have a question? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Do I get to ask two questions while I'm here, or do I?
Sure, go
have to
ahead.
Come back?
You want
Okay.
to target each question
No,
to it?
I'll ask one to the entire group and one to Mr. Jorgensen. The question to the entire group is about the Port of Corpus Christi. Over 25 years ago, the San Patricio County Economic Development Corporation took the initiative to get representation for San Patricio County on the Port Commission. And we were successful in doing that in the mid-90s. And San Patricio County's had very good representation on the Port Commission, but at one time, the Port Commission San Patricio County had no representation. And most of the growth that has occurred in the port has occurred within San Patricio County. And it is still a big issue. Representation on that Port Commission is a big issue. And the city dealing with the challenges of both industrialization as well as the Port Commission and regional economic development corporations. Lots of times we don't get information. The county doesn't get information, the city doesn't get information until a project is virtually announced. What I would like to ask each of you is what is your viewpoint, and do you support San Patricio County getting additional representation on the port? Because that is an effort that's ongoing at a number of levels, and currently it's my understanding that the city of Portland's position is that we strongly support that, even though it has been opposed by the Port Commission and port staff. So I'd like each of you to address that. My question to Mr. Jorgensen has to do.
I can answer that one quick. I am 100% about getting representation on there, and I do know that the county is working on a different way to get somebody on there, but I'm 100% behind that. Let's get the first question out of the way.
Mayor?
Absolutely, I support that. 2 years ago, during the legislative process, I went to Austin many, many times. And recently, 4 years ago, when I became mayor, I began an organization with all the mayors in San Patricio County, San Pat Coalition of Mayors, and we are beginning to stand up our legislative agenda, working with the county to continue that process. Absolutely, 100%.
Elizabeth?
100% supported. I feel that if the port has finally got recognition from the state to get additional funding, then the state can then recognize that we require extra representation on that board. 100% support.
Councilman?
I absolutely support another port commissioner. I don't think people realize that you have to have 2 port commissioners to be able to put an item on the agenda for the Port of Corpus Christi. Right? We have 1, which means if there's an issue in San Patricio County, we do not have enough representation for it to even be looked at during the Port Commission. So absolutely I do, and hopefully we'll see that change.
John?
100% agree. We absolutely need more representation. The port, as it sits right now, there's very, very little area for any more growth in the city of Corpus. The port areas, they're almost full. They're all about to capacity. Everything that's going to be growing, it's going to be growing our direction and all the way out towards Aransas Pass, Port Aransas area. We absolutely need representation in that arena.
Councilman?
I absolutely agree with everything that's been said so far. I would like to just also throw out there that until we have that additional representation, this is one of the reasons why we need to work and interface with both our neighboring cities, as Mayor Scaros said, with her Council of Mayors, and also with the port. It's not the same as representation. We need to work towards representation, but until we get that, we have to continue to work with our neighboring cities and keep our ear to the ground for whatever the port is working on.
Frank?
Yes, I think, all the people up here supports the additional representation on the port. That's a very logical thing for us to do because, as you said, we are probably the biggest growth part of the port. So why can't we get more representation?
Okay, thank you. And the question for Ron Jorgens.
Yes, my question has to do with several points that you've made in your campaign and tonight. Recently, you were one of the big leaders of the effort to get a hospital district, in which that proposed one of the largest potential tax increases, property tax increases in history. In fact, it would have authorized as much as 30 cents on the $100 valuation, but the information that was put out was that the initial tax would be 10 cents. To contrast that, the 30 cents is almost half the amount that people pay in city property taxes. We're in the 65-cent range. So that's pretty significant. I'd like you to speak to that, particularly in light of your concern about rebates, voiced about taxation. The other point is that the hospital district effort was done very quickly, and it absolutely showed an effort. Nobody in the cities had a chance to play a part in shaping that initiative. It was done what I would call in secret and put forward in the last 60 days. And now you talk about the city not being transparent, but yet your record seems to reflect a greater lack of transparency. I'd like you to speak to that. Thank you.
Not a problem at all. Actually, I was expecting Hannah to give me that question, not you. Not tonight? Okay. I've known Dr. Mobley for 37 years. When I moved into town, my wife was friends with him. We babysat each other's kids while they were growing up. He's my family doctor. Times when we've had sick kids or sick adults at the house, he's made house calls. He's a good, close friend. And when a good, close friend asks you to help them with something, that long of a friend, you just say yes. I don't even question it. I help a good, close friend. We did a lot of research on it ahead of time. You're right, it was short. We got everything approved in August, and we started going out. The difference between what the city's been doing and what we were doing, we did 50 interviews, presentations, and everything that we could, TV, to get the word out the best that we can across the 50-mile county. The city is not doing that. Like I said before, on the 380 that you did with the Bill Miller area, you had one meeting on a November that you talked generally about it, and then you passed it on January 4th when nobody was watching. And there was no open conversation with the public about the parking or about privacy or about any of the other issues that they had on it. So that's what the big difference is. We did everything that we could to let the public know about it. Yes, it failed. And it failed for a lot of the reasons that you said that it failed. And what Dr. Mobley, I am not working on that any longer because I told Dr. Mobley about mid-January that I could not work two things, and even if I win or I lose, I'm not going back to working on that project again. But I still think there's a hospital going to be here somewhere, if it's done through him or it's done through the city. You alluded to it during the presentation that we made. I'd like to hear what the city's doing.
Thank you, Ron. In the interest of time, we do have 2 or 3 more questions. I'd like to get those addressed. Please step forward.
I've been hearing about all, the large businesses, the taxes being paid on, everything passing back. What I would like more focus on this town, if y'all look around, look at the parks in this town. What kind of parks do we have in this town? If it wasn't for Frank Lacasio over there and Randy Wright, we wouldn't have a dog park. Frank went and he got a group of ladies. They raised $80,000. The city didn't pay for it. They paid. The city didn't have the money to pay for the park. He raised $80,000 to build the dog park. But I have to say the city has done a wonderful job keeping it up. It's been wonderful. But, look at the parks. Go to East Cliff Park. Thanks to the city. They fixed up the tennis courts. They look great. But we still need new fencing. I want every one of y'all to walk over there and look at them. There's a rusted fence. There's poles are rusted, And if you look at the equipment, it needs painting. My niece takes her 2 little boys over to the Ingleside Park to play because there aren't any parks in this town. You got to think of the little people. I mean, there's places for parks, but they don't have the equipment. They built a $50 million ballpark. What do our littles do? You have a problem now with kids want to do Fortnite. You got to get kids out. You got to have kids do things. You got to look at the parks. You got to think, you got to step back, forget about big business too. That's important, but you've got to think about parks. It's very important for the kids.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Gregory, you have a question? If you want to direct it to a particular candidate, please.
I want the council.
Okay.
What does the statement, when we're talking about the masking and everything else like that, realize in the state of Texas, we've lost 1 in every 490 people in the state of Texas have died from COVID. But in our county, it's 1 in 280. So it's almost twice the rate. So when we sit there and say that we should have dropped masking early and everything else like that, we had to.
Okay, yeah, a little closer,
Okay,
please.
sorry.
Thank you.
In the state of Texas, we lost almost 1 in 500 people to COVID and died. But in our county, it was 1 in 280, almost twice the rate of the rest of Texas. So when we sit there and say we should have dropped all these mandates and everything else like that, how many more people would have died? Because I think that if we raised hands on anybody that knew someone that died of this, almost everybody in this room would die. That's just a statement just because people are talking about getting rid of it. My question has a little bit to do with what she said with the parks. But one of the reasons my wife and I moved here was because of the school district and that this is a family area. What I want to know is what you as city councilman would do to help generate something for the children here. You see in Aransas Pass, they have a skate park, they have a new bowling alley. Would you improve the city parks like we did with the football fields, the baseball and softball fields, or would you try to attract something with this new business of interest in being downtown, old downtown? I'd just like to hear what you guys' ideas are for attracting things for our children to do. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, Ron.
Council.
Oh,
Oh, hey there. Hey. Judge is choking. Oh, what would we do for the kids? So I've noticed at the parks, when you take your kids out, there's not a lot of shade. And I know Yardley was, ex-councilman Yardley was working on getting shade in the parks. I think I would continue that because for the expectant mothers, for the grandmas, we need shade in South Texas. We are way too close to the sun. As I mentioned in my opening, we have the opportunity to start a youth advisory commission where the teenagers can come and be a part of the city development. And on from that, I did ask the Parks and Rec Department to open a Frisbee golf course. They're looking for real estate, and hopefully she'll take that forward. I know it's a great idea. Whether or not I get on council, I'm still going to continue to throw good ideas out there. And I would challenge every one of you to do that as well, because the doors are really open. Randy does answer his phones. And if you do have ideas, as y'all had said, coming from all different directions, you submit that to the city and eventually it'll get heard and it'll get implemented. But those are my top three.
So I'll address kind of both parts of it. My, going back to the masking side of it, for me, is a KN95 or N95, I thought was, a more effective route of going in. But my part of it was being mandatory. I don't like mandating things from a government level. I think that if people choose to do something, then they should do it out of, that choice. I'm just not big on the whole mandating, nanny state. That's just not the way that I think. But when it comes to the parks, I love our parks. We have so many parks within. Some of them may need improvement, and we have plans for that. If there's something that, like to what you're saying, that you see as unsafe, please report that, because we don't want to have a park that's unsafe for children. I would like to see a greater increase in what we do with parks. I would like to see, my thought is to have a whole park going down the other side of the causeway that, has a boardwalk, that has educational components to it, for the different species and things that are in the bays and estuaries. I don't want it to burden us with something that we end up having to be too costly for us to operate as a city. So I think that's something that we want to look at as well. But I think it is healthy to get kids outside and have good parks and safe parks all the way through.
Thank you. Councilman?
Yeah, as for parks, I totally agree as far as needing more parks. That's one of the things that I would like to see modified from our existing ordinances, where subdivisions are allowed to pay in lieu of building a park, or having the hike and bike path in lieu of a park. In certain instances, that might be okay, but I think that we need to have parks. We need to have stuff for our kids. I've got a 1-year-old at home with his Mimi right now, and I need stuff for him to do. Now, I think we do have a lot of parks in Portland, and it's something that many of y'all don't know, or may not know. The city of Portland has an ordinance, a sex offender ordinance, that they can't live within a certain radius of a park or a school. And Portland has parks strategically placed, I guess you could call it, that we are very fortunate that we have those parks here. We don't have some of the problems with sex offenders that some of the surrounding communities have. So I absolutely am in favor of parks in every sense of the idea, and I want to see more. I'd like to see more splash pad type parks. That would be nice. But we also need to look at how we do it. We need to make sure that what we're doing is not going to be a huge draw on our funds. We need to be sure we're doing it in a smart way, that we can cover the costs on these things. Tennis courts, you brought up tennis courts. 100% think we need another set of tennis courts. I don't think we need a $2.5 million tennis complex yet, but I think we need to build towards that. I mean, that $2.5 million tennis complex is something that's in our long-range plan for Portland, but I think that's a little far out. Even if Portland put in another set of two courts or 4, I think we'd be doing
Thank you,
good.
John. Councilman?
Thank you. I'm going to offer a slightly different comment, but I'm absolutely for parks. I want to see them improved and expanded. I would like to say that we do have very good parks, especially considering the surrounding areas. I moved here from Corpus Christi. I lived in multiple different parts of Corpus, and I've lived around the nation in a few different places. We are blessed with very good parks that our city management has and council has put in place over the years. That doesn't mean they don't need attention. It doesn't mean they shouldn't be expanded. That's a core thing I believe in. And as I said in my opening remarks, I've had the pleasure of voting to renovate and to expand some of our existing parks. 100% for parks, especially like Miss Ackerman said, with adding some shade, maybe some splash pad type features for the summer months. But let's not lose sight of some of the very nice things that we have. The parks is something that drew my family to Portland, and I think it's a reason a lot of people move to Portland. We are blessed with a very good culture in this community where kids feel safe playing out until it gets dark. That's even one of the city's advertisement slogans, Portland, the land of play until dark, or something very similar. And let's address what needs to be addressed. Let's keep building it out. One of the things the city is working on is a bikeway throughout the community. And when these new developments come in, they should be putting in green spaces. One thing that council's looking at is having developers put in trees when they're making new subdivisions. That way, as the neighborhoods mature, you have, similar to Broadway, on the other side of 181, where you have live oaks, where you have palm trees that cast shade, that allow people to be out in their yards to enjoy it and play. So it's something we're looking at, but I do think we have a very good park system in place, and the city deserves some credit for that.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, parks, my wife and I have worked for a long time trying to get some expansion of tennis courts and pickleball courts and things that people can do after they reach maturity and continue to be active. And we tried to see if we could get the school system and the city to have some synergy in those facilities that the school can build, but really can't operate and maintain because they can't do this stuff. But that's a really hard nut to crack. I mean, each one has their turf protection. But in other cities, in Austin and San Antonio, they have worked some systems out where the school built things and the city operated them. And other people can make it work. Maybe we can too.
Thank you, Frank. We have time for one more question. A little closer, please.
This would be for Mr. Locascio and Mr. Jorgensen. How will you modernize your Old Town values? Because the candidates in the middle are talking about change and increase and development. And gentlemen, you guys have been here the longest and you've seen the city change. So how will you, represent every demographic in the city? From, like, speaking of parks, from the young children to, like you said, maturity. So Mr. Locascio can answer first, and then Mr. Jorgensen. Thank you.
Yeah, Old Town is a beautiful old place, but it needs a lot of attention. It needs streets and drainage and improvements.
I'm sorry, not Old Town, but your value system. Will your values change from when you were first on the city council to today?
Well, my values?
Yes.
Oh, my values haven't changed very much, and I've just gotten older, wiser, I hope. But no difference in the values. I worked, when I was on the council, from 92, I think, to 98. And we built the community center. We bought Sunset Lake, or got Sunset Lake. And the skate park was all done while I was on the council. Sunset Lake's a nice place, but it's just exactly as it was 20 years ago. We haven't been able to do very much to it, and it needs some improvement also.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Now we'll hear from Ron Jorgensen.
I don't think values change. I got the same values I had, but I do make changes as time goes on, technology increases, and making good use of the technology. In what I do, I was thrown many different types of technology in the 90s while it was being developed, everything from the internet to different pictures and putting stuff together. And I've just kind of kept that up. Every about 3 years, I take another deep dive into technology. The city has some great people. Terry Elliott is one of the best people that I know, and I can stay up with him when he starts talking for about 20 seconds. And then he's above me. He's a great asset along with the rest of the folks over there. But technology-wise, yes, you got to keep up. And I don't mind making adjustments to rebates. I just really have an affliction for sales tax. It comes from the business to the comptroller to the city, and then the city writes a check and gives it back. You lose it. It's just the way it is. But we have done some other things in other areas. Like I said, we did a capital improvement program when we built the A1. We did rebates to help them out. We've built streets. We built the extension of Broadway. We extended the sewer lines and water lines for the movie theater when it came in. I'm not against trying to help businesses come in, but I bend over backwards to help a business that we don't have before I bend over a business that competes with another one that's in town.
Okay, thank you, Ron. We'll have the closing remarks here in just a moment, but just wanted to remind you that City Manager Randy Wright will get up here and talk about Proposition A, which will also be on the ballot. So with that, we'll start with Ron Jorgensen for his 3-minute closing remarks. Don't start the clock yet. Okay.
Is it something I said? Council is what I'm really after. It's not, I'm hoping that Kathy sometime we'll have lunch together after this is all over and compare notes. I have nothing begrudging anybody up here, both incumbents and other. But some of you may know something that's called an Abilene paradox. And when the story goes that they were sitting around having a nice conversation in a hot summer's night, about 30 miles out from Abilene, and then all of a sudden one guy says, "Oh, let's go to Abilene and get some ice cream." Well, they all jumped on the bandwagon and they all drove up to Abilene. They got their ice cream, came back, and then they started having a conversation. I really didn't want to go to Abilene. That one did. Well, I didn't want to go either because that one went. And sometimes I think council is that's where they're at. Somebody comes up with a good idea, everybody kind of jumps on the bandwagon a little bit, they justify it in one way or another, and it works that way sometimes when you have a good idea, but we're not opening that up to the public to get some of the other ideas in there. And it's been shown over and over again with the executive sessions. They come out, they make an okay, or they do the thing that they did on January 4th. If it's not making dollars for the city, it's not making sense. As somebody said to me during the WindFest, it sounds like a Davis Law commercial up there, 444, 4444. And so it's great to have consensus up there from time to time, but if all you're going to do is all your debate in the background and then come out and make that consensus at the end, you're not doing the public any good. You're not letting the public know what you're up to. We need some change. And so I want you, instead of just thinking about reelect, I want you to think reconsider. You have a lot of good candidates up here that want to do the right thing for the city. And if nothing else, think about this as a little bit of a referendum. Do you want to continue paying with sales tax to recruit development coming in, or do you want to put a stop to that and look at some of the state programs that we had in the past? My name's Ron Jorgensen. I'm running for the position of mayor, and I'm number 1 on the ballot.
Thank you, Ron. And now closing remarks from Mayor Kathy Spiro.
As a result of my background, experiences, and values, I have a skill set that makes me uniquely qualified to be your mayor. I am fair, competent, and reasonable. I enjoy building consensus while being respectful of each other's opinions and experiences. But more importantly, I am a servant leader. The goal of a servant leader is to serve. When I look at the 12 guiding principles of a servant leader, I see me. These guiding principles include listening, empathy, nature of spirit, building community, healing, awareness, calling, conceptualization, foresight, persuasion, growth of people, and stewardship. One of my greatest honors while serving as your mayor was being asked to take part in the PBS series of South Texas leaders. I invite you to view this interview on their website or by Googling South Texas Leaders Season 2. You will learn a lot about me and my leadership style. Because we are a growing city, Portland must continue to successfully manage our growth while maintaining our family focus. My goal is simple: to continually promote our city as a family-friendly community and to focus on our motto, building community and raising families. This family-friendly focus includes everyone, from the youngest newborn to their parents and grandparents. Additionally, if the Leisure and Entertainment District is approved by the voters on May 7th, I'm committed to seeing this project come to fruition within the next 2 years. This is a project that is near and dear to me. While campaigning in 2018, I heard from citizens that Portland is a wonderful place to live, but we still lack that town center or gathering space to call our own. Everything we do as a community, from the major investments to the small details, is aimed at two principles: community and families. That focus and commitment to our mission has resulted in Portland boasting some of the best amenities in the region for our citizens. During the past 4 years, there have been many difficult decisions. As your mayor, my job is to listen to your views and concerns, study the issues, and determine the most appropriate decision when it comes to a council vote. I take my job as your representative seriously. I've enjoyed representing you, and I ask that you re-elect me as your mayor. I would like to thank you for attending tonight's forum, and I appreciate the opportunity afforded to me by the Lions Club of Portland and the Association of Realtors. I ask for your favorable consideration during early voting or on Election Day, Saturday, May 7th. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 5 candidates for City Council, and the first candidate, Elizabeth Ackman.
Hello. We are honored to live where the police officers and the firefighters are about us here in Portland. This is just not a job to them, it's an attitude. When we create relationships with the officers and the students, we develop a communication that builds a more stable environment. And my family and I are so appreciative of the dedication, devotion, and energy that our public servants give to this community on a consistent basis. So to me, as a small business owner, I actually don't get anything from running for city council. We have other Edward Jones advisors across the entire U.S., and a lot of them are senators, and they're mayors, and they're city councilmen, and every single one of them says, yeah, no, it's really bad for your business. You guys can probably tell you how many people complain you and tell you the little nuances when you're like, just call the cops. You don't have to come into my office and, break up our day and tell me all the bad things. Nevertheless, since joining the group that got the dog park together, that Frank did lead, to running the organization for this past WinFest, it's in my heart, and it's part of my value system to give back to the community in every possible way that I can in my fiber. As much as my husband says, please stop adding on more stuff, I just can't stop. What I want is to be on the council so I can make proactive decisions on the direction of the city. I've been here 8 years. It was very strange to me that so many people said, wow, this city's really growing when I moved here. I'm like, really? And then honestly, when Mayor Scaro come on, it was like warp speed, things changing. And so what I'm asking for is to be able to get in front of those changes that is coming, regardless if you like it or not, it is coming, and put that forethought into those little details that when the city's being developed, add in a couple extra streets. When you're developing the park, and I did know about the sex offender thing, and that's why I moved here too, throw some shade out there because we're going to be in that park, but you can't just make a park and expect the kids to go out there. They're not putting down their controllers. You got to give them incentive to get out there and be a part of this community. And the only way to get them out of the house, besides forcing them or grounding them to go outside, is building this community together to give them something to look forward to where they want to be out there with everyone. You should know, I do believe in maintaining affordable tax base, providing a balance between living and playing here and getting the youth more engaged. So I'm hoping in the next 2 years, we can all imagine that on the weekends, we are staying put in Portland because we have tickets to a show, or we are going to the community center to learn a new language. These are the kind of ideas that I'm bringing forward. I am Elizabeth Ackman, and I hope that you will vote for me early voting or on May 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And our next candidate is incumbent Gary W. Moore.
Well, first, thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate the questions. I hope you found value in this tonight. But I just want to recap that I am appreciative of serving the citizens of Portland for the last 4 years. This would be my third term, and I hope that you do elect me for a third term. But I want and I'm for the continued growth of the city because, as Elizabeth had just noted, it is coming. It's inevitable. It's happening, and we have to get in front of it. We have to manage it, and I think we've been doing a good job on that. But we need to do it in a way that keeps that small town feel. There's a certain element of charm for the city of Portland that we need to make sure we maintain, because that is something that brought all of us here. And it's from the parks. It's the parks, it's the businesses, it's the whole thing, the whole community plays a part in it. And we need to make sure we don't sacrifice that. In addition to that, please don't forget that I am for keeping taxes low as possible. We have maintained approximately a 65-cent rate almost the whole time I've been in council with very little fluctuation. And I hope to see that continue. And with the help of city staff, helping on the budgeting process, we have really been able to maintain that. But once again, early voting starts on the 25th, I believe, and May 7th is Election Day. I would appreciate your vote for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Our next candidate is John Reed.
I would echo what a lot of the candidates here have said tonight. It would be an honor to serve with any of them, and I hope I do. I would also like to say thank you so much for the Lions Club and the Realtors for putting this on. It's really hard in Portland to get information a lot of times about our local candidates. The state races and the national races are real easy. You look online, find out what everybody's platform is. Here in Portland, local races, county races is not as easy, and it means a lot for them to do this. Yeah, I wish I had more time to stand up here and talk. As much nerves as I do have, there is a lot more I have to say. One of the main things I want you to know, what I'm up here for, I want to offer a change of perspective on how we look at things in the city. It seems almost like there's an echo chamber for a lot of the stuff that goes on. Nothing against the council members or past council members. It just seems like you got 7 people that are saying the same thing. 6 people are redundant. You don't really need them. So I think we need to have a little different way of looking at things. We need to get out. We need to find out more from the public. We were talking about parks. Maybe we need to get with some kids and find out what the kids want. My daughter, 12 years old, what do we have around here for 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds to do? There's nothing, very little. They can go to the movies and that's about it. We need some more stuff to do. I don't know personally how to make that happen by myself, but I would like to sit down with people and find out. I think we need more avenues to do that, and I've got some ideas. I've got ideas on how we can make that happen. There's forums out there everywhere that we can get on, even for free, to interact with the community to find out, whether it's Facebook. We can put stuff out on YouTube just to get information out, to get the feedback back. Stuff that's easy to use, easy to navigate, that we could get some feedback. Yeah, like I said, I've got so much. You know, that I don't think anybody that you have up here is going to agree on every issue. Everybody's going to have another way of looking at something, and I think that's good. I think that's a good thing to have. Having a little bit of discourse, as long as at the end of the day everybody can shake hands and move forward in the same direction, I think that's the way we need to do things, and that's what I would offer if you see fit to elect me, and I hope I've earned your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And our next candidate is incumbent Zach Albrecht.
I'd like to thank you all again for coming out tonight and the organizations for putting this on. And I hope in my opening comments I highlighted some of the experience I bring to the table. I'd also like to thank my wife, Lauren, who's in the back, because without her, I may not have ever found Portland and moved here. And part of what caused us to move here is the culture of Portland. And when I say that, I mean the whole enchilada, the parks that we do have. And I agree that we should expand them and keep them up to date, and that they can be improved on. But from where we were living, it was world class, and I'm still very proud of the parks that the city does have. The public safety that we have here, the responsiveness of our civil servants, those are things that maybe it's not possible once you reach a certain point in a city's growth, but we have them right now, and we absolutely need to make sure we sustain them for the growth that Elizabeth and Gary mentioned is coming. The port is developing in San Patricio County, and even projects like SDI in Sinton, those people will predominantly live here or in Calallen. So we need to be forward-looking, build out our infrastructure, including our parks, including our roads, to accept that growth. The other thing that we saw when we were visiting our friends over here before we moved was that Portland really is a leader in the coastal bend. It's a destination people want to move to. It is the fastest city, the fastest growing city in the coastal bend, and I intend to, when elected, maintain that. I think we can do that by getting out in front of this growth, leveraging the establishments that are coming to provide things that are near and dear to our hearts. Those green spaces when a development comes in, making sure we have the proper mix of housing. When a retail establishment comes in, making sure that it's not an eyesore, that we don't approve something that we regret 12 months down the road, that it's in line with our current standards, and at times, raising those standards. We recently changed the setback that is required on housing because we had developers coming in that wanted to be even closer than what the zoning allowed. And we said, no, that's not what we see for this city. It's important to have those houses back off the street so kids have a place to play. I believe we can do all these things. I think my voting record over the last 6 months shows that it's something that's near and dear to my heart, that I care about. I hope when you go out and vote that I'm one of the names on your ballot, and I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And our fifth candidate is Frank Locasio.
Not an easy thing to walk on, but anyway. The good thing about being last is that you pretty much heard it all. So with that, I'll say good night and thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Well, those are the candidates. We appreciate you coming out this evening. We have City Manager Randy Wright, who will be talking about Proposition A that will also be on the ballot. So with that, he didn't get a hand earlier. How about now for our City Manager?
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Just a couple of minutes just to recap for those of you that have not heard that on the ballot on May 7th, there will be a ballot item that will allow our voters to determine whether or not we will allow the service of alcoholic beverages in a certain portion of Old Town that the city council has defined as a leisure and entertainment district. So this district was the result of a number of years of research and work by consultants, by citizens groups, where we tried very diligently to find ways to take Old Town, redevelop it, reimagine it. And through those efforts, we found that, and also keeping with other cities that have gone through the same thing, is that the way to do that is to promote more and more business in that area. And the way to do that is perhaps to allow some businesses to sell alcohol. The city council voted to put this on the ballot because we have a very unique opportunity in Portland. No other city in Texas has this opportunity. Senate Bill 1218 was passed by the legislature last term, which allows the city of Portland only to define an area within the city with a different liquor by the drink option as from the rest of the city. Everybody else in Texas, when they go to the polls and say we want either liquor by the drink, we want private clubs only, we want package stores only, or we want restaurants only, it has to occur for the entire city. And we were successful in getting legislation passed that allows the city to define an area within our restaurant type only option and define that as something different, something where we can have liquor by the drink. And on top of that, the city council layered a permitting process that requires that anyone who wants to sell alcohol within that area, the LED, that they've got to go through a planning and zoning process for a special use permit. And that special use permit has to be vetted. It's going to have to be looked at and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then eventually go to the city council for approval. So this option, if the voters approve it in May, will allow the city to do something that no one else has done in Texas. It's going to allow for the expansion of a lot of small businesses, a lot of owners in Old Town who are excited about the fact that their property now can possibly be redeveloped and have a renewed flow of revenues. That's all possible. But we'll see. It's really up to the voters. The city at this point puts this out for the voters. We're not allowed to promote it, but we can tell you factually about what's on the ballot. So with that, Dan, unless there's any questions, I just wanted to.
Any questions from anyone
ballot.
about the proposition?
And there are some handouts at the back that actually show you what the ballot will look like and what that proposition looks like.
Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and have Judge Krebs with the closing remarks. Thank you very much for coming out this evening.
Well, thank y'all for coming out. This is very, very informative. Thanks to the candidates. Thank y'all for coming and spending their time with us and letting the audience and the citizens of Portland ask you these questions and stuff. As Randy Wright said, there's some information on the table there in the back on the referendum, and then there's some pages on voting locations, voting times for early voting. Make sure you pick one of those up, and make sure you go out and vote. All of y'all here I know tonight will be doing that. That is your voice in what's going on in this city, is going out and vote, okay? So with that, we'll go ahead and conclude for the afternoon. Thank y'all. Y'all have a great remainder of the afternoon and evening, and we'll see you at the polls on May 7th. Thank you.